What if I told you that some of the most important parts of U.S. history were left out of your textbooks? Here are 5 ways Americans have been kept in the dark about their own history. Number 1. A brief history lesson. Let's start with a quick review. In school, we learned that the United States was built by revolutionaries who fought for freedom from the British Empire.
Ho, ho, ho!
We learned about key figures like George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. We studied the American Revolution and the Civil War, and we celebrated holidays like Thanksgiving and MLK Day. While this curriculum left out or glossed over many details, at least it provided a basic narrative of how the country was formed and progressed, right? Well, not exactly.
Ho, ho, ho!
In reality, there were entire chapters of American history that were either completely removed from textbooks or only received cursory mentions. As a result, most Americans today have no knowledge of these events, let alone their significance. Some examples include the Tulsa Race Massacre of 1921,
Ho, ho, ho!
in which a white mob destroyed the prosperous black neighborhood of Greenwood, also known as Black Wall Street, or America's role in the overthrow of democratically elected governments in Central America and the Caribbean during the 19th and 20th centuries, or the centuries-long struggle for indigenous people's rights and representation. Each of these topics deserves its own dedicated lesson.
Ho, ho, ho!
But in the interest of time, we'll group them together under the heading of Hidden Chapters of History. Now let's explore why these events were left out of our history books. For starters, school curricula are determined by what's taught in history textbooks, and for decades, the writers of those textbooks have been influenced by politics and education boards.
Ho, ho, ho!
Consequently, certain stories have been marginalized or completely erased. Until recently, most textbooks presented a very narrow and biased perspective on American history. They often failed to represent the experiences of marginalized groups or the contributions of non-white Americans. Instead, they perpetuated harmful stereotypes and oversimplified complex historical events.
Ho, ho, ho!
This wasn't because those stories were too difficult or controversial to teach. They were intentionally left out to maintain a particular narrative of American history. But why, you might ask? Well, consider this quote by Nobel Prize-winning historian Eric Hobsbawm. He said, "The past is never dead. It's not even past."
Ho, ho, ho!
In other words, history is often used as a tool to serve contemporary political and social agendas. Powerful groups can shape the way history is taught to maintain control and power. By controlling the narrative of the past, they can influence how people view the present and the future.
Ho, ho, ho!
For example, some groups may want to downplay the role of slavery and racism in American history in order to avoid acknowledging the deep-seated inequality that persists today. Others may want to emphasize American exceptionalism and the idea that the United States is inherently superior to other nations.
Ho, ho, ho!
Ultimately, the goal is to maintain the status quo and preserve the power and privilege of those in control, and the effects of this are still felt today. The consequences of this intentional erasure are far-reaching. They have left many Americans with a distorted sense of their country's past and present. For instance, the lack of attention given to racial inequality in U.S.
Ho, ho, ho!
history has contributed to the persistence of systemic racism and the marginalization of minority groups. Similarly, the omission of America's role in global conflicts and interventions has given rise to a distorted view of the United States' global reputation and role in world affairs. But there's more to the story than just the intentional erasure of certain events.
Ho, ho, ho!
There are also countless stories of everyday Americans that have been lost to time. These are the stories of unsung heroes, forgotten inventors, and suppressed social movements that have shaped our nation. For instance, did you know that the first woman to earn a patent in the United States was an African American inventor named Mary Kies?
Ho, ho, ho!
Her invention, a machine for making straw hats, was patented in 1809, yet her name is virtually unknown outside of patent records. Or, did you know that for years the federal government tried to buy Alaska from Russia but failed? Because Russia wouldn't accept their offer. This led to the U.S. purchasing Alaska from Russia instead.
Ho, ho, ho!
Stories like these are not only fascinating, but they also provide a more complete and accurate picture of American history. They humanize the past and make it more relatable for students. When they learn about the struggles and achievements of everyday Americans, they gain a deeper appreciation for the complexities of history and the challenges faced by their fellow citizens.
Ho, ho, ho!
So, what can we do to uncover these hidden stories and ensure that they are passed down to future generations? One way we can do this is by supporting organizations that are dedicated to preserving and promoting diverse perspectives on American history.
Ho, ho, ho!
These organizations often work to raise awareness of marginalized voices and experiences that have been left out of traditional historical narratives. Additionally, we can challenge the status quo and demand that our schools and universities provide a more inclusive and accurate portrayal of American history by calling for greater diversity and representation in curricula and textbooks.
Ho, ho, ho!
We can help ensure that all students have access to a well-rounded education that reflects the richness and complexity of our nation's past. Ultimately, it is up to us to decide what history we will remember and celebrate. Are we content to accept the status quo and perpetuate the same old narratives, or are we ready to embrace the truth and strive for a better future? The choice is ours to make.
Ho, ho, ho!
Thank you for watching. Please leave in the comments what history lesson you wish you had learned in school.
Ho, ho, ho!